now move on to our first panel discussion of the day, titled Financial Inclusion and the Role of Technology. In this session, the speakers will discuss how technology is being leveraged from the point of view of digital public infrastructure, be it from the perspective of opening an account, availing a loan, or making a digital disbursement. To speak on this topic, we would like to invite Balaji Rajagopalan, who is the Chief Technology Officer from SBI, Venkattesh R, who is the President and Head Operations, Technology and Human Resource from DCB Bank. Can we have you on the stage, please? Let's have a huge round of applause for both of them. Next, we have Kumar Swetank, who is the AGM Private Banking, Digital Transformation and Adoption from ICICI Bank. Let's have a huge round of applause, please. For next, we have Gaurav Mahendru, who is a lead technology from ServiceNow. And to moderate this session, we have Sumana Sarkar, who is a bureau chief from Financial Express Digital.
Thank you, Purti, and a warm welcome to all of you once again. Digitally, if I can borrow from what Nitin was just saying, that India is driving a strong digital inclusion agenda. And needless to mention that the way technology is being taken into account, or the role that technology is playing, it's a no-brainer today. So I would like to talk to all of you about this, and if I can start with you, Balaji, on the role that you see that what technology is currently playing in the financial world, and how it's becoming an enabler towards a greater financial inclusion.
Thank you for this opportunity. Since we are talking about financial inclusion, I will probably just touch upon more on the financial inclusion. There's a 65% of rural in the country, which means the financial inclusion plays an extremely crucial role in terms of providing affordable and accessible banking services. Lack of awareness is one of the major concerns. So when it comes to financial inclusion, how do we make sure that we have easy access for the intended population, so that they can have banking services? We can eliminate the barriers of policies, regulators, because of which some of the micropayments are not being done, microservices are not, microtransactions are not being done. So when it comes to especially financial inclusion, we need to look at platform which integrates with all these ecosystems, so that there's a seamless and cost-effective finance. If these are disjointed, there's a problem for access. There's a lot of barriers in terms of awareness among the people. Maybe this Aadhaar has, to some extent, has definitely improved over the digitization. In pandemic, you would have seen in the urban areas where a person who has nothing about banking, with a QR code, he just places his card and he gets a credit, right? So I'm not sure to how extent on the rural villages it's happening, but at least I've seen with my earlier experience, a lot of promotions are happening within the governments in terms of regulatory authorities, empaneled warehouses, so that there can be electronic warehouse receipts, electronic funding. The cycle of ecosystems from agriculture, where there's a farmware, dairy, farms and equipments, when it comes to manufacturing and trading, where there are food processing units, there are ecosystems, mandi, markets, the villages people come to for the markets. When it comes to services, how do you make sure there's a seamless partnership which is not at a country level, but at a local platform level, local region level? For example, every village, do we have the local partnership with the startups, which will help for the local people awareness with the relevant parties like CSCs, bank correspondents, in all these areas. So when it comes to a technology requirement perspective, there is a need to have a local platform which has tie-ups and marketing, which helps reach and at an affordable cost, and they should not be struggle for the life cycle, which I mentioned about. There's a need for underwriting with a machine learning capability, which is not a GYAN, but in reality, we have seen that the CIBIL score is okay for a salaried employee for a corporates. but it comes to for the financial inclusion. Account aggregators made help where, for example, I gave the example of a Mandi. The QR code which is available takes care of all the complete banking services. So the complete credits which are happening for the bank, from the bank account for this particular individual, gives you a lot of insights on frequency of the payments, nature of the payments, value of the transactions, what kind of value. It gives a lot more insights. Subsequently, it gives a important financial inclusive banking services, which helps for scoring, credit score, which is not just a CIBIL score. When it comes to the transactions against payment systems which are having seamless integration, from a credit perspective, again, from the assessment, geospatial and assessments of the land, you don't need to physically go and visit. Exactly validating the land from assessment perspective. When there's a crop insurance, where there's a crop reaping of the overall part, you can do with the geospatial validation, which helps you to assess the overall crop. For example, somebody has taken a loan. The progress of that is being validated. These are tested and proven where you can validate. So right from onboarding to customer services, the seamless experience of digital channel experience, powered by all these capabilities, really make it financial exclusive inclusion, which is really accessible and which is affordable for the market. Thank you.
Seamless integration is something that we have been always talking about. So, Kumar, Swetank, if I can pose this question to you, from awareness to adoption, how do you see the whole ecosystem tying in with the help of technology?
Yeah, so thanks for this invitation, first of all. So, before that particular piece, I just want to put up, as the question was, how much technology is as an enabler, means we have achieved this particular thing. So, digital infrastructure, one is, what bank has just created right now, with interoperable systems, open architectures, and that's why each of the banks are latching on the common infrastructure and taking use of it, and these Aadhaar-based payment ecosystem is like one of the example of it. And in addition to this, one another point to take a note of it is, the people who are there at the villages or at the tier 3, tier 4 cities, there as well, the public infrastructure like the mobile connectivity and the mobile devices, that's also have deeply penetrated. It's more than 1 billion mobile users are there right now, 800 millions internet connectivity are there. Now, the time is to take use of all this infrastructure right now and do the integration. So, now the one of the difficult part in the banking to reach out to this customer was, to get the identity, to make the KYC done at the low cost. Now, we have achieved in last 4 or 5 years, Aadhaar, everybody just talked about it. It's an enabler right now. UPI as a payment is an enabler right now, and we have reached quite. Now, if we'll start taking the use of these two as an identity, and we can open the account, people are doing the transaction, we are having the complete transaction logs, then taking the use of the machine learning, if how we are assessing those transactions properly, and getting a credit worthiness, which was not the earlier underwriting model right now. So those work is happening. And, in the near future, it's not only the people who are having very good credit worthiness with the help of their bank statement and other thing. We can analyze all these things, and then we can provide loan to these sort of customers as well. In addition to this, once we'll be having all this data available with us, then, some sort of pre-approved loan can be given to them. But that will be happening after next 2 to 3 years for this sort of customer, because we'll be having the data of this sort of customer because they have disbursed properly and all those things. So in this way, we see some work is happening right now.
So data collection is one aspect, or how data can help interpret a future course of action. But Venkattesh, one more aspect that I would like you to touch upon is the cost factor that comes with, the cost of financial inclusion and there where technology, the role that it's coming.
So much has been spoken about what kind of infrastructure that is there. I think I would approach this question into three parts. One, what is already there, and in terms of the public infrastructure, from an identity, from a presence, from KYC and everything else perspective, there is an infrastructure that is being shared, and that is low cost. Everyone appreciate that the Aadhaar infrastructure is not very expensive from a usage perspective. And if you look at what is the usage on that is, about over 30 crore Jan-Dhan accounts are there. Over 80% of these accounts are Aadhaar seeded if you leave Meghalaya, Assam and J&K. These are all Aadhaar seeded accounts, so which means that it's a very, very robust infrastructure there. So 5 areas where I see, so the second part would be the areas where we are doing well. So the areas which are on the deposit side, so you have 32 crore, accounts have close to about 88,000 crores of deposits which is there, which seems to be the money is actually going over 7.5 crore accounts are receiving the DBT transfers that everyone, acknowledges that this money is reaching to where it should reach. So on deposit side, there seems to be lot of good work has already happened. Even on the loan side, microfinance institutions or small finance banks and many other banks are doing some related, or NBFCs are doing a fairly good job based on what data is available. Where there is a challenge, which is the third part, is that on investment and insurance. Again, on insurance, if you look at the data, there are about 20 crore customers are either enrolled in PM, Jeevan Suraksha, Jeevan Jyoti schemes, etc., or Pradhan Mantri Atal Pension Yojana, all of that, they are enrolled. But there is lot more that needs to be done. And the role of technology, so the last part I will just cover is on the investment part, because people don't realize that even the marginalized communities where we need financial inclusion, they need to invest in financial products. So if India is growing, how can we leave India only to wealthy Indians to make more money? There are people about 1 billion people whose income is less than 5 lakhs. And there is lot more that can be done for them. Technology, what it could do is to help bring aggregators so that the cost of acquisition for these products, both insurance as well as for the investment products, can be cheaper. It can be offered to the end customers so that you are able to utilize that. The last part, which is the most significant part, is the financial literacy. What are we doing to bring financial literacy among those people who are, let's say about 82% of rural India is actually women. Women are actually working in the rural India, which is of 82% of working class is women. What kind of financial literacy we can actually bring it to them? That is exactly what we need to do, and technology can play a major role. Taking from your example of mobile and any other infrastructure, mobile can be used for financial literacy. Mobile can be used for, technology integration so that the cost of acquisition and cost of servicing is lower. And the reach is much more than just 20 crore insurance or 30 crore Jan-Dhan account. It should be much more than on insurance as well as on the investment products.
Technological literacy is something that we will touch upon, and also how it, differs from region to region. But before that, Gaurav, if I can pose this one question that, how do we defend our digital assets? And technology here is, what is the role and what are the challenges?
Thanks for that question, and I hope this is working. I think it is. So, financial inclusion definitely is a big thing, but what we also need to understand is it goes hand in hand with digital inclusion. Now, when you talk about digital, just taking Balaji's example here, geospatial, right? A lot of, if you'll see suddenly, drone tech has popped up where you are doing farming with regards to understanding how the land is, how the crops are, so on and so forth. Okay, that information can be aggregated and will be aggregated someday into the banking system for the loans part of it, as Sir mentioned out here. Okay, the mobile part of it. And then Nitin actually spoke about the part of AI, especially, and around the ML part for credit score analysis and stuff. Now, that's a lot of information which is coming in, which belongs to the citizens. That's very private in nature. Okay, and what the tech will play a big role is how do we secure this information? How do we ensure that privacy stays private, as the thing says? That becomes very, very crucial and will be a big challenge with more numbers of people getting financially included. Financial literacy is the other part, because you need to be, it's not just on the banks and it's not just on the providers to ensure that your data is secure as well, right? How are we going ahead and ensuring that the people who are the users or the customers or the citizens are also safe and sound and are literate about how do we go about banking and how do we go about staying safe? You've seen so much of these incidents happening of wishing and phishing, right? So on and so forth. That becomes a big challenge. So that needs to percolate downstairs as well. Yes, of course, acts like data privacy and data protection will help, but we also need robust technology at the back end to ensure the balance is maintained between them. That's something which I wanted to bring forward as well.
Yeah, very relevant. And Balaji, if I can come back to you, we were discussing this even before the panel started about, the perception and the nature of inclusion between the rural and the urban region. If you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the rural part of it, the reach is extremely important. Awareness is also another extremely important. They don't have the CIBIL score. Like, no, there are regulatory policies. Some of the banks, private sector banks, will not be able to provide a loan for such kind of, because of the lack of CIBIL data kind of things. So, especially financial inclusion, as I mentioned, adaptation of digital is extremely important for them to first get the credits part. For a farmer, for a dairy, any of those low income set of income people, this digital adoption is extremely important to start getting the credits, the nature of credits, and when it comes to the target offerings, when it comes to the personalized offerings or customer-centric offerings, extremely important that you need to analyze with the account aggregator information which is available. You can really scan through the list of records, which gives a lot of persona builders. When it comes to micro-segmentation, the ID attributes from a prospect right up to the persona builders to arrive at the micro-segmentation to make sure that what is the expectation. There's a mandi market, for example, in the urban, somebody comes once in a week, all along from the village, and he'll get all his credits. On the one day, he gets a lot of credits, which is indication saying that he comes for the mandi operation. It indicates the nature of his business. Or is he waiting for a crop business where it is once in a 6 months, right? This credits is an indication of value, volume. Is it a season-oriented? Or is it on a daily basis, monthly based income? A lot of insights are coming up. And I don't need to get into the CIBIL score for a farmer. This is an extremely important information where, based on the concerns of the customer, I get the complete information. Number two, the urban population really gets access. We don't need to talk about the access part of it, awareness part of it. When it comes to the village, a lot of people have this village entrepreneurs. They are the promoters for the awareness. Number two, there are business correspondents. I remember in all my previous organizations, there used to be 1 or 2 business correspondents for the entire bank. And they are the representatives, agents who go to the people. We even used to wonder, and I used to manage the core systems. I used to wonder, these customers, information is available. How reliable are they? They are completely based on the business correspondents. Will there be any frauds? Is the amount really reaching to the beneficiaries? And there is a file which used to come because they're all rural villages. Every week, there used to be a file which comes in that the credit, because the account business correspondents used to collect the information and they would do a bulk upload into the systems. So there are a lot of governments which are encouraging on the partnerships with startups, fintech startups, agri-business, where the electronic funding, electronic trade, partnership with all these manufacturers, the supply chain, they make it very extremely seamless. So the cost part of it, as well as the efficiency part of it, across the supply chain is extremely important. And there are things like, for example, government with Garmin Mandi markets, government is encouraging on M-panel partners of the warehouse so that there is no paper-based title documents. Instant credits are given for repeated customers. How? Again, from the rural villages, we will have no connectivity. But with the partnership with BCs, CSCs, village entrepreneurs, with the startups, local partnership with the local environments, really makes the customer reach with an affordable cost. Yeah.
Yes, Swetank, if you want.
I just want to add to one of the points, because Balaji has well covered the digital infrastructure and the services part. Apart from that, in order to reach deep to the people who are there quite interior, one piece is that, how we can improve the digital literacy and the current digital divide which is there right now. And I believe, each one of us can make some contribution towards that. One is, these people, they don't have the trust, but in last 3 or 4 years, how, the subsidies are being transferred to them through some bank account only, and we are thankful to the government to take this sort of initiatives. They have started building this sort of trust right now on the backing, but to whom we are just interacting in each of our day-to-day life, means, and through the calls, and to whom we are knowing right now, we'll have to keep motivating, keep providing more sort of literacy around these things, each one of them. And I think in upcoming times, they will also more aware on few of the technologies which are just coming up, how to take use of all these methods, and we can bridge this gap as well. And these sort of services anyways, bank altogether they are working on, and government is also putting a lot of effort.
Yeah, bridging the digital divide is something I would like to come to you also on, Gaurav. How do you see technology there, bridging this, or where and how can it help more seamless, integration that Balaji was talking about?
So, when you talk about the digital divide, okay, it again comes down to how easy do we make it from an adoption standpoint, the customer experience, okay, how easy does that become? That's where technology needs to play a big role. And again, it was mentioned in the keynote itself, right? Whether we go ahead and make it a personalized experience, and in that, do we go ahead and, let's say, maintain a standardized experience or not? That becomes a key. I think we were discussing with some people in the morning the concept of, let's say, the metaverse side of things, right? But will that go ahead and reach the people, especially in the rural areas? Maybe, maybe not. Does that tie or with the thought process of the rural areas? Maybe not. Okay, or maybe. So where does technology play a big role is how are we going to improve that experience which we take to them? And Balaji sir actually did speak about the people going to the mandis and all, right? And then going ahead and taking their credit. How easy do we make it for them to understand that one, of course, the transactions are done, okay, and it's credited to your account, and how do you deal with that? How easy it is to interact with those systems? That's where technology will play a big role. From a accounting perspective you will see a lot of these initiatives by the government, right? Like the Jan Dhan accounts and the others, which have ensured that the benefits are credited directly to them. It's no longer a middleman. Okay, you talk about the LPG side of it or whatever it is, right? It's directly credited to them. However, how aware are they of these particular things, and how easy it is for them to use these accounts is where the divide will start to bridge slowly but surely. But technology will play a big role, especially in the part of making this flow easier for them. The customer experience becomes key in these scenarios, or the citizen experience, whichever word we want to use out here.
So on that context, Venkattesh, if I can come to you, and Swetank, later if you could also add to this, using technology to enhance or optimize integration as well as the experience. If you could just explain with some use cases.
Yeah, so I think we have seen the example of Aadhaar-based payment system, across the country, and the usage of Aadhaar-based payment system is the adoption is much more in the rural areas than what you see in the urban area, including the disbursements, etc. UPI is another example where it has made everyone's life lot easier because there is an API integration that is happening. The customer is able to do transaction both on the payment side as well as when they have to receive the digitally they need to receive the the disbursement which the bank is doing. The truth is that the bank accounts are operational and the money is actually flowing and money is also going out. That is the biggest proof of pudding that you see in terms of what I'm saying customers, but for all purposes, all Indians in the rural space, they are able to see that it is in their accounts are in the money. And where technology has been able to play a much wider role is in terms of making these things available on the mobile itself. So whether you look at the WhatsApp kind of a banking, whether you are able to see the access to, what your passbook used to be the only source of information earlier from a use case perspective. Today, you are able to see those transaction alerts on your mobile. I'm not saying how many of them are financially literate to see what is the message that is coming, but there's one element that I want to talk in the context of that, is that India is also becoming younger. We are looking today the India in the context of what India has been, but what India would be in terms of not just the growth, but the younger population, they are more tech savvy. So utilization of digital products or digital savviness is only going to increase. So the need for us is to see how are we able to involve them and empower them from the current set of instruct and explain. So assisted model is very useful in terms of usage of these financial or digital products per se, but how are we involving and empowering them? And you mentioned about the context of trust. Trust comes from the fact that when I need money, the money is made available to me. So the money lender is actually giving the money where there is a marriage at home or there is some emergency. That person actually knows that I can get the money from this person. That you would still go to the same person. So important thing is the digital products, because the money is not with you. We are so used to having the cash with us. And how do we make sure that we build that trust? It's a matter of conduct and it is going to take time, but the adoption will be much faster. And the interface that you spoke about, I think the interface is very seamless today, and there is a lot more that is happening from the government side. There is a lot more that we need to do from what they want, and how do we build those interfaces.
Yeah, so again, just extending his point, how we can improve the experience taking use of the technology. So, the people what we're just talking about, they don't understand, you can make all these mobile apps. So, what has happened, these, they are not that much literate. Taking use of, the first example is taking use of the biometrics. And that is also happening, Aadhaar based biometrics is like one of the big enabler. Second piece is when you are just designing the app is, people are, and the banks are just making in the native languages, which is there so that, these sort of people means they can read through it and they can make themselves quite familiar. And that is also one of the success story which is there. Now, if you just look at like the Paytm and other thing, how you are taking use of the voice there means, and that is also very use case, the people doing the transaction, the confirmation coming, and voice assistant model which are there right now, they are helping and facilitating this sort of customer to get all this, get those transaction done. So all these things are the part of the technology only, means some form of artificial intelligence which are there, and there are different use case for which this sort of model are being fit in, and finally it is leading to improving the customer experience, and here our customers are the sort of people who are taking use of this.
Balaji, I think
I
you
just
also
want
wanted
to add upon. when it comes to the language, right, everybody talks about generative AI. It's not something new. If you look at 2011, Google introduced translation, language translation. Who are using an iPhone, you know that there's something called Siri, right? It also has language translation. These all are generative AIs. But why ChatGPT has been very famous? 2011, the digital adoption in the country was very less. Whereas in the last 4 or 5 years, everybody knows the amount of adoption. The world knows the amount of adoption. So the time taken for 100 million users in 2000, for which was introduced by Google, it took 78 months. It took around 30, 40 months for Siri to become popular, to reach that 100 million users. But with ChatGPT, it crossed 100 million users in 2 months. So language translation is extremely important. When it comes to mobile, again, as I mentioned, when it comes to reach, when it comes to cost-effective financing, it's extremely important to meet the supply chain seamless. For that, the language translation becomes extremely important. While somebody will not have the English language adequacy, but it's extremely important that the language translation can be of great use. The investment to provide both a combination of physical and digital channels is extremely important to make the access and make the people understand. I mentioned about the electronic trading and funds. There are fintech startups which are there for farmers to sell them. I'm just correlating an urban clamp, right? Urban areas, I don't need to have a contact of any of those people. Similar thing, if we have the local type partnership with the supply chain, the farmers are going to be directly benefited. And they're not going to be given extremely low, no price for what they are going to give. So one, in terms of the language, awareness, translation becomes extremely important. Starting from onboarding to complete customer services, digitization, a QR code makes it sufficient for somebody to do the daily day-to-day transactions. Urban clamp equivalent of something like which are already there, ENAM, email. Government has a lot of regulated, empaneled warehouse storage, which makes the funding, trading electronically made available without any tampering of the documents. The supply chain integration makes the farmer go through seamlessly without struggling with going to multiple parties. So in this way, the complete life cycle, instant credit we mentioned about, when it comes to instant credit, the BCs, CSCs, the kind of partnership with the ecosystems makes the digital inclusive for the population as such. Thanks.
So what most of you were referring to, how does trust and technology tie in when you are moving forward on financial inclusion?
So especially I mentioned about this digital, the warehouse which is talking about electronic funding, electronic trade. There is no manual involved. There's no paperwork. There's no manual paper involved for tampering of information. The life cycle which I mentioned, there's no individuals involved. That builds a trust. I don't need to worry about individuals who are missing, whether the beneficiary is really getting the funding. So the trading part, the funding part comes through the digital capability. And the awareness part helps them to make sure that they really use this opportunity as such.
I just want to add on the trust part. If you see about a decade back, when RTGS or NEFT was being used by the banks and for property transactions, when that sale transactions would happen, people were very reluctant to receive money through RTGS or NEFT, saying whether actually I will receive the money after registration or not, because people used to go to the registrar office and say whether the money has indeed transferred or not. Today, no one talks about a demand draft as an instrument for the transfer through property transaction. This has happened because we have been able to, through the infrastructure, it has been established that it is a good medium. A rural India is also seeing the similar transaction. They are also same human being as we live in urban areas. There's no difference. We both are human in all respects. There's no difference. I think it is the conduct and stability and consistency with which it would happen if we are able to demonstrate that it happens, and an assisted model where I'm let's say a new device comes, a new mobile phone, a new iPhone comes. I don't know how to operate it. Till I get familiar with it, I will not build my trust around that. It is same thing with any new thing we do, because the change itself means that, look, there is a threat to me. if we are able to remove that threat from the minds of people, which will happen through financial literacy, it will happen through digital literacy, and we are able to demonstrate that it works all the time and it works for you, your money doesn't go away, or the money that you are likely to receive comes to your account as and when it is due, that builds the trust.
Gaurav, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, couple of points definitely were mentioned by Venkattesh sir out here. But again, just picking on these things, right? So when we do talk about any new service which is being introduced, at the end of the day, as Balaji sir mentioned, the system-to-system interaction makes it far more trustworthy. When you start removing the human errors, basically, not the human, but the human errors, when you start removing them from the play altogether. Like for example, if you've got a flow which happens for, let's say, a payment processing or even a card operations kind of a thing. So how many systems are interacting in the middle, and can you go ahead and directly bridge them together, aggregate them so that the information just flows from one to the other, and finally it's not just completed successfully, but in a shorter span of time because of the automation that's coming in out there. And to Venkatesh sir's point, once you start demonstrating that, it becomes a lot more trustworthy. The second thing where people will see technology coming in is, again, the AI part of it, right? AI by itself needs a lot of learning, needs a lot of understanding before it starts aggregating and taking decisions based upon it. So what are the models which we are feeding at the back end? Can we eliminate what the term that's being caused is, that's being called now is the morality of the AI, right? Or the bias that seeps in. Can we eliminate that from the model? So that will start building in trust as well within the rural as well as the urban part of it.
Yes, it's a very interesting aspect, and I want to take this forward. But before that, if there are some questions from all of you here, I can see a lot of hands being raised. So if we can start with the gentleman.
One question from my end is, as a lot of you mentioned about data sets, so there are a lot of data with respect to user generated and machine generated. So at a organization level, what's your take on internal threats? And partly you mentioned about literacy, about like literate to users with respect to whatever flow, whatever technology. If I'm as a user entering some kind of data on website, so I'm concerned about my data. So with this to respect, what's your take on this? Like whoever can take this question. Thank you.
Can I take the first one first? Okay. So far as the data is concerned, you know that the new bill has been passed, which is on Digital Personal Data Privacy Act that is passed recently, few months back, by an act of parliament. And within that, there is a concept of what you call data principal and data fiduciary. Data principal is the person whose data it is, and data fiduciary is who is using the data. Now, if anyone, which includes any institution, who uses the data of the principal, needs to put an infrastructure, appoint a chief data protection officer within the country, and make sure that there is a proper process governance model around the data protection of the principal. And there are, obviously, you would have heard about the fact that there are strict penalty as well if on each instance there is a penalty, which is quite huge. So institutions need to put together data protection in their own companies for the principal whose data they are using. Having said that, even before the act comes, every institution is responsible for maintaining data security. Even today, from a cyber threat or any other threat perspective, data leakage prevention mechanisms are put in place. And there is enough and more that has been there. There will always be threat, and there would always be mitigation. But how much of that is enough is something which the time will say. Second part of your question, could you just repeat it once again?
Like how to literate user ends. Like you mentioned all these things with respect to this. Like, but how to let your users know that you are taking these measures? And secondly, what about that internal threats?
So internal threat, I mentioned to you that it is only the inside threat for if you really look at it from a cyber security perspective, 80% of actually cyber attacks happen with the assistance of an insider. So each institution needs to make sure that they have built-in mechanism to control that. Can it be eliminated? My answer is no. Okay. Can it be mitigated? To a great extent, yes. It's a fear or it's a risk that is unknown, which will always emerge. The more you do, the less it is. But you need to keep working on that, because there is always a human element to that risk, which you need to manage. So far as the literacy is concerned, in terms of making the end user aware, there are various mechanisms which the banks are using today, which is through SMS, through workshops, through master classes, to sending communication. But I can tell you that no matter amount of awareness or education you build, if there is a temptation that you are getting a free pizza or you are getting a free holiday trip, many people would actually click that link. Okay. Now, the cyber attackers or anyone else work on the psychology. And the psychology is based on greed and fear. So greed is that free pizza. Okay. Fear is that if you don't do, your account will be locked or money will go away. They don't play on digital part. Please understand this. It is not about tools for cyber security. There are enough and more cyber security tools which are there which will protect. But at a basic level, where people falter is where they make a human error out of either greed or fear. And they play with that mindset of that. So how do you address that? You can do more of awareness, more of stories. I think where it helps is to share the stories of what happened. People relate to it much more than telling, please don't do it. If you tell 1,000 times don't do it, people will still do. But if you tell, this is what happened with me, they will connect with it much more. That's what I think we should do.
Just to add one more point to that, right? So for the insider part, as Sir mentioned, there's a lot of internal security tools and mechanisms which are there. However, one more provision that's being added in the Act is where the principal can ask the fiduciary, where is my data, how much of it, and how are you using that data as well. So that will add to a lot of literacy from that element also. So that's also being made available as a part of the new Act that's coming in.
And it is consent based. You can withdraw the consent. Even after giving consent, you can withdraw the consent, and the data has to be purged by the fiduciary. So the provisions are stringent. Implementation is where we need to see how it is being implemented seamlessly and with what ease.
One final question, yes.
So, just extending what you were saying, that we need to have consent and we can ask for that where you are using my data. But if you just sit down and think of in day, you are filling the petrol, you are going to so many places, you are sharing so much data daily in the day. And when you say that, okay, suppose yesterday I was in bank and I was signing the bank loan document, there are 51, 52 pages. I mean, you know that we are never going to read that. We'll just be signing it and giving it away, where I don't know what consent I have asked for or what I have given. So where I'm coming from is saying this all are very, practical, and I really appreciate it. But look at the day in, day out, we are doing transactions. So one of the things which he was mentioning about, in a day, how much data I'm generating, I'm sharing it with people, and how much really I have control to know about also that I have shared this much amount of data with the people. Yeah. So yeah, now I was working with one very large organization. They are doing data isolations, and they are saying that now data should be provided service to control this kind of controls. But overall, still, we are at quite a stage where we are sharing data, without knowing also. Yeah? That's my point. So, hope that makes sense to you.
No, you really make sense, because what you are saying that as a customer, you may not have, read or understood and then shared the consent, and you are not able to keep count of that, which I fully appreciate, if that happens. But at an institution level, institution is also responsible, and I can assure you that each institution makes a lot of effort to see that the data is protected, because they are also not interested in leakage of data and creating any risk for let's say that I'm using the word principle because I'm going by the act, but let's say using the data of a customer or anyone else. So there are mechanisms to make sure that the data is protected. I don't think there is any insincere attempt only because it needs to be done that way on paper. In both letter and spirit, there is enough and more safeguards are built because companies are also aware of the risk that comes with the data. Because
these are part of the regular cycle. It starts from the requirements till post-production, right? That's a implicit process which is happening as such. Right from the data and rest, data and translation. When we talked about cognitive capabilities, we are very particular that data should not cross the country. The public cloud should be only within the India region. And within the organized financial institutions, there are a lot of process on endpoint solutions, information rights management, data leakage. How do we make sure that the customer PA data are encrypted? There's no exceptions, and these are being governed, monitored in the name of regulators, audits. So these are underlying process.
Yeah, so just adding to this particular, see internally within the organization, the information security team who takes care of it, it's a very, very strong team. Any new initiative which is been taken off any of the leading organization, you will have to pass it through with few of the key teams, and it is like that both from the RBI and SEBI side. If you'll just look at that, they keep on updating all these new guidelines. The PI, personal identification information, means very stringent rule. Means you cannot even, there are few protocols which has been defined. You cannot even share it internally within the organization, and for that multiple level of approvals are needed. You cannot keep the data in outside cloud, which is not there in India. So these are all the data norms only, I think everywhere is very much aware of. And as one of the point we were just mentioning that, as an end user as well, we should be equally careful. Means, anything which is just coming to us is our own responsibility to go through it properly. We do our part, and organization are taking care of. And if there is any breaches happening, it is well been escalated as well. We will be finding a few of the cases coming in the media.
It's a collaborative process. It is never one or the other. Unless all parties to it who are responsible for safeguarding what is the best interest of everybody, there would be challenges. Because let's say we share, a particular bank is sharing your credential for, let's say your login ID and a password, and you keep it freely in your office on a chit and paste it on your screen and say, look, someone is actually, and many people do it, by the way, let me tell you, it is not, I'm saying, people actually keep an Excel sheet of all passwords and then think that their Excel sheet is very safe because it is with them. But if your endpoint, which is your laptop or a desktop or a mobile, is connected with the internet, please remember, it is not risk-free. You would have yourself given a consent that your app can actually have access to full mobile data, and you would have not realized it, or they would have had an update to that app, version update, where they would have said, look, we need additional controls on these areas. In a hurry to do some transaction or something, exactly, you would have just said, okay. And then everything has an access. Please remember that.
Absolutely.
Nobody can actually say, look, internet, if something is there, it is only with you. Which is why there are some systems which are not supposed to be connected to the internet. They have to be standalone. There are some certain systems in the organization cannot be connected to the internet. That is because internet is risky. But with a proper protocol, internet is also safe as long as everyone collaborates. If there is one chain, one weak link in the chain, there would be challenge.
Multi-factor authentication is again mandate, not only for customers. All financial transactions, multi-factor authentication is mandatory, right? People cannot share that. Number two, even within the financial organizations, every system has a MFA integrated.
So on a lighter note, probably this is a good use case for Gen AI, right? Summarize my 51-page consent form for me.
Yeah.
have a lot of questions I can see, but the clock is also ticking away. So, gentlemen, if I can, tie it down to 3 points that you would see, when we talk of financial inclusion and the role of technology, the challenges therein, and how technology can help take it forward in future. So, Swetank, if I can start with you.
Yeah. So as I'm starting, easier to put down few of the challenges which are there. So the challenges which were there, the cost to reach out to these sort of customers there. So the cost of acquiring them, cost to doing the transaction. So, and what we have just achieved till now, as in nutshell, is taking use of the first thing, the Aadhaar, the UPI, all this thing, and then the data which are just coming in, how we are building new models, taking use of it, and still there is a lot of work which is happening, and I'll just pass it on.
I would just say 1 or 2 points is that how do we make sure through technology all products are reaching to the end customer? It is not, should not be only deposit and the loan part, it should be all other products. And technology's major challenge in that area is to make the cost of acquisition and cost of servicing cheaper, and making sure that the adoption in the first stage happens through assisted model, and thereafter it goes into a straight through model. So it's a journey, it's a behavior change. It is not technological change. According to me, it's a behavior change that has to happen in the second leg once you have addressed the cost of acquisition and cost of servicing.
Yeah, so the barriers of financial inclusion in terms of the untapped market, the lack of awareness, regulatory constraints, whatever barriers are there, as I mentioned, whatever capabilities we discussed, they are all available in the industry. They are tested, proven, they are in survival. However, the penetration, 100% penetration can only happen furthermore with awareness and local tie-up partnership with every village, panchayat, making the life of the farmer and the low-income people reach out and not believe just on individuals.
So over and above these, I would just add digital inclusion and then of course the privacy part of it. These two will definitely be challenges which technology needs to look at and solve as well.
So trust and technology are the crucial factor driving financial inclusion, if I might say, aided by digital literacy and better awareness. But as Venkattesh said, how we address the greed and fear is what we need to look forward. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for sparing time.